S08E22. That's all we need.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, Alex, and with me I have Logan. How are you, Logan?
Hey, Alex. Doing pretty well. Another interesting week. Another point gained or lost, or 2 points lost, depending how you look at it. But no, going all right.
Yeah, look, I guess it was an interesting one. We're coming off 2 wins in a row against Birmingham and Wigan in the league. Winnable home tie against Huddersfield, big crowd backing the side as well on the day. Only the one change from the last time out in the league with Smith coming in for Ali. And I guess it is one of those ones you probably look at as potentially 2 points dropped, but the manner of the equaliser coming as late as it did, it does feel like 1 point gained at the same time. So I think they were saying in the coverage, and I think we probably talked about it last week, Huddersfield being one of our bogey sides with the 5 losses in a row or something like that. So just one of those sides we seem to struggle to match up with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we talked at length about that in the last podcast, and for good reason. I think it's just kind of, those bogey teams that you've become so familiar with that you don't even really need to go back and look at the record. You just look at the fixtures and know straight away that there's something that feels unsettling about that particular matchup. And as you said, to get a goal in the fashion that we did and so incredibly late in the game, it's hard to kind of come away from that and not be too heartbroken, given the fact that it's very rare to see a goal that late in a game to begin with, but nonetheless against, as you said, one of those banana skin teams. So definitely something that we will take and be grateful for, given the circumstances.
So rare. In fact, I saw the stat. I don't know if you saw it. The last time we scored a goal that late in a game was Andy Robertson's third goal against Derby in the first leg of the playoff,
Wow.
which is some time ago. But look, I mean, and it was a great finish as well. I was sort of posed the question in the chat that it was probably Oscar's best goal of the season for us.
Oh, it's incredible. I've watched it multiple times, and just the speed that the ball came in and how he was able to kind of change his body shape and direct it. It almost looked like one of those kind of last-ditch efforts where you just throw a limb at it and hope that it goes in the right direction. But on replay and being able to watch it a couple of times, you really see the level of finesse and just quality finish that it was. So fair play to Oscar. Massive goal in the scheme of things, but a very impressive finish.
Yeah, no doubt. I guess manner of the performance as well. I mean, I've seen some sort of criticism on social media for how we played, the fact that we're sort of struggling to pick up wins at home. I think we're third on the table for away form, but we're second last on the table for home form, which probably says it all at the moment. But I was actually surprised when I was looking at the stats, and we had more shots on target in this game than we did against Wigan. And I guess when you're putting them in the back of the net, it makes the performance a more enjoyable one. And it maybe speaks a bit to the fact that towards the end of the game, we threw everything at them and perhaps we're a bit complacent early on, I guess is the word for it. How did you view the performance as a whole? I think we sort of sat back a bit too much in the first half, perhaps.
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought that we played well in patches, but the thing for me is, and I know this sounds like one of the most kind of obvious cliches in world football, but we just seem to be a horrible team when playing behind, particularly if the goal that we concede is a really careless one. And I mean, you go back and watch the goal that we did concede and you look at how poor it almost looks calamitous, but it's not that anyone is really largely at fault. It just looks like as a kind of whole unit that people are just, bundying off, and it just seemed all too easy. And I think we've probably seen that too frequently in the games at home, particularly against those teams that we're either sitting above or are expected to kind of really trouble. And they're the games that really scare me at home. Is like gone are the recent times where the KCOM or MKM or whatever it's labelled throughout these periods is it's somewhat of a fortress. I've always felt pretty positive about playing at home, particularly in our times in the Premier League. So I guess the thing that's concerning for me is coming up against these teams at home that we should have a lot of confidence about, that we're just allowing them horrendous goals and just kind of easy leg ups, and then having to find our way back into the game and still rescue points sometimes. But I mean, we've had a few red cards against us recently, where we've been playing against 10 men for for the vast majority of the second half, and then we really start to get confidence. So I think that's disappointing that it was another one of those games that, even though the performance itself wasn't incredibly poor, and I think Oscar, as we've mentioned, kind of saved our blushes, but the fact that we're finding ourselves in positions at home where we have to chase games is probably the biggest issue.
Yeah, Look, I completely agree, and I think there's also the element that some people have pointed out is that when we go away from home, sides are less likely to sit back and park the bus against us when they're sort of expected to be the ones to go out and attack, which then maybe plays into our hands. Whereas at home, as we saw against Huddersfield, they go a goal up, they sort of park the bus or sit back a lot more for the remainder of the game, which definitely doesn't help things. I've completely lost my train of thought now, what I was going to say, but yeah, look, I mean, the home form is an issue. I think it's just a sort of thing where you sort of look at the manner of the performance and you think, if one of those chances goes in a little bit earlier, if we're able to get a goal up and actually force the opposition to come out and chase the game, it can make a difference, because then it opens the game up far more. Like you saw against, was it Cardiff? I think, was that at home or was that away? I can't remember where, but that sort of game where, we scored an early goal in that one. Yes, they then took the lead 2-1 up, but it was a much more open game and allowed us to essentially win the game. So it's one of those things where I'm sure the wins will start to come. And I think what I was going to say is, I'm actually, at least the positive to take out of it is that we're turning these positions into draws and we're picking up points even from losing positions. Whereas under Shotter, you would have seen the side sort of slump to a 2-0 or a 3-0 defeat and not even have a shot in some of those games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that this might be something that will come back to haunt us, but it seems like it's been a few weeks since we've genuinely been talking about relegation. I think that, we've had a steady climb up the ladder, but no longer are these teams, coming like to the MKM, or we're going on the road and thinking, oh, geez, like, with the exception that the Sheffield United game that, we'll be talking about shortly, there's very few massive scalps that I just think that we, may struggle with. Like, everyone is kind of back in that box now where, regardless of who they are, as you mentioned, there is a confidence in the team, and it doesn't feel like we really have to fear too many people. So hopefully we can, correct that home form and start particularly fixing out a fence in those first half, and then really, when Racinius talked about the type of football that he wants to play, really start to kind of stamp ourselves or assert that dominance earlier in the game, and have teams really fear the City attack at home, and not just looking to break teams on the counter.
Yeah, and for all of our poor home form, I did have a look at, typically looking at form over the last 5 games. There's only 3 sides in the division who are undefeated in their last 5 games, and that's Burnley, Sheffield United, and ourselves. So not bad company to be keeping in that sense either. Tete off the bench as well, another good cameo from him. He had that really clean strike towards the end of the game where you think, if that goes in the back of the net, that's up there as one of the goals of the season. It was such a pure strike, just a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, it's amazing to see a player of Tete's quality back, and as we mentioned, at the start of the year, when Oscar and Tete were paired together, they looked to be quite a fearsome duo, and rudely that was cut short, unfortunately, by the Tete injury. So to me, it's kind of, I don't know, no coincidence that Oscar seems to have hit his straps again with the return of Tete himself. So hopefully that partnership will be something that we'll be looking to over the next couple of weeks, and continues to help that climb up the ladder that we're expecting to see.
Yeah, 4 goals in a row for Oscar as well. First time in his career. He seems to be that sort of streaky striker. Like he got the 7 goals or whatever it was at the start of the season, and he's going on another similar streak at the moment. Yeah,
absolutely. And I still remember the opening podcast of the season when you asked the people. I'm sure that you did it with a couple of us, but who was the player that you were most likely to see, or you were most excited to see? And I think you mentioned Oscar. Wanted to know if he was that 15 goal a season striker that we'd been longing for. And I guess he's answered that question in the run that he had.
20 goal a season striker.
That's right. With the return that he did have at the start of the season, and then, as you mentioned, the this current period that he's sitting in. He's definitely a proven goal scorer, and every championships team or every team in world football needs someone of that caliber. So he's certainly been an incredible asset to the City playing group this year.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, looks like my Chrome might be about to restart. So if I disappear from the stream for 2 seconds, don't panic. I'll be right back. Just on MVP votes, then, how about you give your MVP votes while this relaunches, and I'll be back in about 5 seconds.
Okay, perfect. Look, the three votes I had to give for Oscar, obviously that goal. And the magnitude of being able to rescue a point for us in a game that could have been an incredibly hapless result was fantastic. And he actually, I thought, to be fair, he had quite a decent game in the build-up. He looked our most likely for extended periods. So 3 points definitely to Oscar. My 2 points, I think I'm going to give to Alfie Jones. I thought he was pretty solid, and I know that it seems a little bit contradictory when I talk about conceding a really weak goal earlier, and it's kind of difficult to pick on one of your central defenders. But I thought he was pretty good. And then my 1 point I was going to give to Regan Slater. I think that he just continues to be that workhorse, and I'm actually really impressed. I know that there's a lot of talk about him being a £50,000 signing and all the rest of it, but regardless of the transfer fee or what we actually paid for him, the price tag, I'm just amazed at what we've seen in his game and the improvement. I guess the player that he's become for us. He just seems to be so much more confident on the ball now, and he's always been a kind of workhorse. But how he's now starting to really link up our attack it's not just a case of he's good on the ball. He's just really impressed me with his ability now as an attacking midfielder, and he just seems to be growing in stature. So for him, he got my 1 point. How did you see it?
Yeah, pretty well similar in one sense. I was pretty close to giving Slater my 1 vote, but I ended up swapping that out. But yeah, I gave Oscar the 3 votes as well. Hard to go past him when he got the goal to snatch the draw for us, and really sort of looked. He had that other shot just before, I think, that the keeper palmed onto the post as well. So looking quite dangerous around the box, and definitely one of the stars of the match. I went Greaves for the 2 votes, so I guess sort of similar thinking to you, going another one of the defenders. I thought it was another really strong display from Greaves. I think to be fair, I could give it to Jones as well, because he did put that ball up forward that Oscar eventually scored off, but I sort of leant towards Greaves on that one. And then I gave 1 vote to Ingram. I thought that he made a couple of really crucial saves, especially in that first half, to essentially keep us in the game. Look, with the news, I guess I'm still a bit unclear whether Axe has actually gone back to Chelsea or what's going on with that, but he's certainly out injured. It's been great to see Ingram sort of step back into the side and still look to be performing as well as he has, which is great to see. So that was my 3 votes as well. Looks like we've got someone watching on from France, which is always great to see. So good morning from here in Australia as well. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Okay, well, we'll move on then, and we'll talk off-field news. We've got a few bits of transfer news to get through. We sort of talked last week about Malcolm Ebiawe's move from Palace being all but a formality. Looks like it's been held up slightly by a knee injury, which seems pretty typical for us this season. It seems players either get injured as they sign, like in the case of Adama Traore and Salah from Arsenal, or they get injured before we've even been able to get pen to paper. But fingers crossed it's a pretty minor one, and it sounds like he'll be with us before the end of January anyway, which isn't the end of the world, I suppose.
Not at all, but it definitely takes away a lot of weight from my argument about getting these deals done earlier in the January transfer window if we know that we're just going to be inheriting another hospital situation. But look, let's hope that, as you said, it's a minor one, and that all the paperwork will be done, and we'll see him announced very shortly.
Yeah. And the other one, which I think from memory first emerged last week after our last episode, Uriel Selly, I think is how it would be pronounced, Peruvian youngster, about 21 years old, I think, has made his international debut for Peru. So he's got a bit about him. Sounds like we're sort of going down the same route as, your Norwiches and your Watfords of basically trying to recruit these guys from South America before they make it big over in Europe and attract a much bigger fee. Very much one for the future. I mean, Rosenior's confirmed that this is happening, so it's more than just paper talk, but very much sort of I think we're signing him, loaning him straight back to a South American team, and more one to keep tabs on for future seasons, I suspect.
Well, it's a very interesting direction, and one that would be somewhat unfamiliar for the direction of I guess the City scouting report, because I know that we've talked about this before as well. And certainly under Steve Bruce, we know that he was very much a homegrown kind of a scout, where he looked certainly in the United Kingdom to find his talent, and did a fantastic job, I might add. When we think about some of the names that he did attract to the squad. But I certainly have really liked what Liam Rosenior's done in regard to the types of players that he's thinking about signing. And we talked about the relationship that he's got from Derby and the people that he's got in his corner and he's close friends with. And I'm sure that having any level of connection like that, and being able to rely on such sources. Obviously, there's probably something in this. So, as you said, a 21-year-old Peruvian international, it doesn't sound like a poor thing to be keeping tabs on, as you say.
I did also have a sneaky look to see if he was if his cap came in that match against Australia. It did not, which would have been a bit of fun, but I'm sure he was watching on for that one. I guess the other bit of transfer news that I think just emerged today was that we're getting quite close to signing a senior keeper on a season loan. Few rumours that it's either Carl Darlow from Newcastle, or I think Scott Carson, who's at Man City. Now, I think Carson sounds more likely only because he was at Derby with Rosenior. And obviously, being in the City system would be very adept at sort of, passing out from the back and that sort of style that Rosenior wants to be embedding. So he's the one that seems more logical to me. No doubt, mainly coming in as like a backup to Ingram and to sort of push him rather than to take over starting. But I guess probably makes sense to get another senior keeper in.
Well, absolutely, and I always remember, if I'm not mistaken, I think Scott Carson was the keeper in that Derby game that we mentioned, where Andy Robertson did score incredibly late. But as you said, Scott Carson's a very well-travelled veteran, and as you say, senior keeper that would probably provide that backup option to Ingram, which would certainly strengthen our ranks, especially if the rumours of Baxter returning to Chelsea are true.
Yeah, and speaking of returns to Chelsea, we do have the comment here saying Cameron wished that he saw more of Harvey Vale before he left. Vale has returned to Chelsea. Cynic has gone back to Antalyaspor on loan, and Fleming's gone out on loan to Oxford. So a couple of players either returning to their parent clubs or heading out on new loan deals as well. I guess Cynic's probably the biggest name of those three. Bit of mixed reports. I think Baz might have tweeted out saying that his City career is over. He's gone back to Antalyaspor, but then Rosenior said that he's expected back here for the start of summer for pre-season training. Suppose he could get another chance in the City squad, see if he comes back with a sort of refreshed attitude. But otherwise, probably one that's been a bit of a bust, unfortunately.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think he might have scored on the weekend as well.
Yeah, he did.
Which just adds to that salt in the wounds. To be fair, I think that Cynic was one of the kind of the bright lights that I really would have liked to have seen more of. I agree. I would have loved to have seen more of Vale myself as well. I think that in the very very limited time that we saw him, he did show a lot of promise. But Cynic for me, when I saw that headline and thought, if he is to be one that does return, which obviously he has done so, that's certainly an area that looks like it's the one that got away, maybe just because there did seem to be an incredible amount of promise with him. But I guess I'm not going to judge that decision until we see what happens in the remaining time that we've got in this window in January, and see if they're able to replace him with someone potentially more suitable. We'll wait and see.
Absolutely. All right, then let's do a quick round of Who Am I? And then we'll chat Sheffield United if you're ready to go.
Let's do it.
This one is a bit trickier than last week, so we'll see how you go with this one. I made 77 league appearances for City and I scored 9 goals.
Okay, yep, next clue. That doesn't give me anything just yet.
I joined City in 2011, so he joined under Nigel Pearson, and I left City in 2014, so under Steve Bruce, after loan spells at Ipswich and Birmingham.
77. I don't know if this is the right period. I feel 77. We're probably looking more at a winger, or perhaps a forward that played a lot of time off the bench, or and the clubs again.
So he had loan spells at Ipswich and Birmingham while he was at City.
Okay.
Let me pull up. I'll see, because I actually didn't look it up. Actually, no, hang on. I'll give you the next clue, and then if you're still struggling, I'll tell you who we signed him from, which might help. But so I'm English. I played as a striker and most often wore the number 9.
Okay. The player that I had in my head, it was Martin Waghorn.
Not a bad shout. I think he was just on loan though, so I don't think he would have made that many appearances. But right era.
Yeah,
sort of,
I'm trying, and I feel like I'm going to kick myself because the Ipswich. I feel like Ipswich is the key. As to who I was trying to think of, who are the people that City of 70. Okay, I'll need another clue.
So we signed him from Peterborough, and if that doesn't help, I'll also look up who we sold him to.
Okay, players who have come from Peterborough, I think, is George Boyd, perhaps.
Yeah, not a bad chat, and actually that's almost bang on his era. I think he joined us under Bruce, though, so I think he joined the year after this, but he did leave in 2014, so it's a good shout.
Okay,
so this player we signed from Peterborough, then we sold to Bradford.
Oh, okay. This is a frustrating one. I feel like I say this every time you give me one of these questions. It's frustrating. It's the Ipswich link for me. I'm just trying to think who else was around this era. From Peterborough, signed from Peterborough. No, I'll need another clue.
So my initials are AM.
AM. Is this Aaron McLean?
Yeah.
Aaron McLean. Okay,
there you got it.
All right. So
that's a tough one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that there was a game. I can't remember who it was against, but I'm sure that we scored 5 goals, and I'm pretty sure that Aaron McLean got a double, and Matty Fryatt may have got a hat trick.
Yeah, Geez, what was that game? That does sound really familiar. Was it Scunthorpe? Maybe
Scunthorpe.
Yeah.
And I remember it came at a really critical time. I think that we were kind of we'd had a bit of a form slump, and then I remember, because you rarely score 5 goals in a game, and when it happened, I just remember seeing who was on the score sheet, and it was an impressive one. But Aaron McLean got a double, and I remember being really amazed by that, because at that point in time I hadn't seen that much from him, and to see that Aaron McLean had scored twice, I was really impressed by. So yeah, okay.
And it was funny as well, because he wasn't particularly prolific. So you think he's finally scored 2 goals in a game. How good for him! And then Fryatt steals the show by scoring 3. Just looking up if that was it. Yeah, you're right. It was it was 5-1 actually. Yeah. So it was 5-1. Fryatt hat trick and McLean with 2. Yeah, that's right. What else was I going to say? I think he was the other one other than Proschwitz who scored in the Middlesbrough win in that first FA Cup match in the big cup run. So that might have been one of his last goals for us. But anyway, Aaron McLean.
Very
Cool.
good.
Very good. Well, speaking of that cup run, another team that we beat on that famous way to Wembley was Sheffield United. I wouldn't mind another 5-3 win over them this weekend, to be honest. It's a Friday night game in the UK, so Saturday morning over here, but a huge game against the team coming second in the table.
Yeah, and a team that are flying. I mentioned before about, one of those teams that I guess that City have kind of grown into their skin a little bit and, look to be a team that shouldn't be scared of too many. I do kind of worry. I think that certainly is you take a glance at the league table at the moment, and Burnley and Sheffield just do seem to be those two teams that are, head and shoulders above the rest. And certainly with the gap back to that third, fourth, five, six places for the people chasing the playoffs, it just looks to be,
It's crazy.
And I don't like saying that this early in the season because, we do know from years of experience what can happen in the championship, but it certainly does just appear like they are playing on a different level at the moment. And I think it's going to be a really tough one for us this week.
Yeah, 11 points clear of third already is pretty unreal. I guess, sort of clutching at straws for potential points in our favour. So Njai might be missing for them. He's been a really strong focal point for them so far this season. As I sort of mentioned earlier in the episode, though, I mean, there's that interesting element that we are sort of third or second in the form table away from home. So there is the argument to be made that we kind of go there in pretty strong form, at least away from home. There's the potential, I suppose, that Tete might be able to be back in the starting lineup. Maybe Tufan, who's someone we didn't really talk about off the bench against Huddersfield, who looked reasonable. There's a few options there for us to change things up and change the way that we sort of play against them. And it's easy to forget that we did actually run them pretty close when we played them earlier in the season. It was really, I'd almost say it was probably Tete's injury in that game that sort of swung the balance. And Oscar had that really good chance. I think Tufan had one as well in that game. If it was the same game I'm thinking of, where he could have taken it around the keeper or something, but tried to chip him. I think that was that game. Yeah. So that there could be opportunities there to get at them.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that, as much as I do say that they are a team that we probably do have to have a healthy fear of, given their form. I mean, it is one of those games that you could argue as well. Is it a free hit for City in the respect that, they are sitting, so high up the ladder, and as you mentioned, we have no reason to not be confident given our away form, but I don't know if it'll be one of those games that we'll have, extreme pressure under. If we come away and don't have the 3 points, then, it's going to be a travesty. I don't think it will be seen that way by Rosinha, and I feel like he'll certainly, have the troops up for it, because it is just one of those, significant games. If you look at it as an opportunity and you do go there and you come away with, a point or even better 3 points, it sort of instantly skyrockets the confidence in the playing group. And, if you're ever going to look for a promotion run, or certainly a late season kind of chase at that playoff position, then these are the types of games that can really spark that.
Yeah, no doubt. And it would certainly have the rest of the league sort of sit up and take notice of us if we were to pull off the win in this one. Sort of talking there about Tete and Tufan, are there any changes that you'd probably make to the side? Maybe Tete in for Smith if he's up to starting?
Yeah, I think that's probably the obvious one. I think, the Tete return, and as you said, there were some really good moments or flashes of brilliance from Tete, certainly late in the game. And if he is fit, I know that's probably the way that Rosinha would be thinking if he had to, name his first 11 on paper as the players that he'd like to see. I think a fit Tete probably nudges it over Smith. You're more likely to see Smith kind of late in the game come on for the last 15 or 20 and just be that kind of workhorse who puts a bit of pressure and looks to sneak a late goal. But I think that it's more likely that Tete starts if like, as you said, they deem him up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, Smith and Slater, both ex-Sheffield United players as well, so I'm sure they'd love to be on the score sheet against the Blades. Score prediction for this one?
This is a tough one to pick. I think away from home, I think the Blades definitely have goals in them. Look, I'd really like us to score. I'm going to say maybe 2-1 to Sheffield United, and I would absolutely love to be able to say 1-1 and we go there and sneak a huge point.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm probably with you. I'd probably say a 2-1 defeat. 1-1 draw would be perfectly fine with me, or just any sort of result, or a strong performance would be good to see as well. So just keeping it tight, keeping it close, and we'll see how we go. But that's what we've got to look forward to this weekend come Saturday morning, which will be great fun. And it's been great fun having you on, Logan. So thank you for joining me.
My pleasure, Alex. I'm really looking forward to a nice, healthy Australian time slot for us to view the game at a reasonable hour.
Yeah, not as much of a struggle to stay awake for this one as it is at 2 a.m. So definitely looking forward to that. And look, thank you everyone for joining us for this week's episode. It's a bit late out this week. We'll be back probably on the Tuesday or Wednesday next week to look forward to the next round of games. But until then, come on, City.